Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And today I have the honor of talking to Talha Bin Hamid from Karachi, Pakistan. He is a distinguished Toastmaster, and I believe he has one of the largest clubs in Toastmaster clubs in Karachi or in Pakistan as a whole. And we're going to be talking about education and his relationship to it. Having said that, I want to remind you that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. Talha, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, good evening. Thank you so much, Carla. So, who am I? I'd like to introduce myself as a proud nerd, a geek. So yeah, all power to the nerds. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. For viewers in the USA, that's roughly parallel to CPA. I'm an accountant, but I'm not an accountant. I like to think I'm much beyond an accountant. I'm working with a non-profit organization that aims to provide education to underprivileged children. I started my Toastmasters journey in 2016. I've won Distinguished Toastmaster 4 times, and I'm currently serving as the District Director of District 122 Pakistan, as well as the President of my home club, Karachi Toastmasters Club.
Wow. Now, we were talking about education and English and everything happening. Tell me your thoughts on let's speak a little about English before we forget. How important is it for not only children, but adults to be speaking in English these days?
How important is water for fish or learning to breathe for any organism? That's how important English is. Whether we like it or not, that is the one language that enables global communication. And the better we are at it, the better we are able to express ourselves, and the better we are able to safeguard our own languages and cultures. That's how I think about English. It's like the atmosphere, it's like water. It is everywhere. And unless we learn to use it and partake of it, our survival is not possible.
So how do you feel that kids should be trained to learn in English?
They should not be trained at all. That's my point. Because training, and that's the mistake we do. We try to train them in the arts. We try to train them in languages. We try to train them in science. There's no joy. It's just a chore. And unfortunately, in Pakistan, at least, what I see around myself, the younger generation and people from my generation as well, most of them take languages as a chore, be it English or our native Urdu. They just treat it as a subject, as an exam to get through. There's no joy, there's no passion, and there's no ownership of the whole beauty that lies within English and within every language. Instead, it's a subject, it's something to cross, it's a hurdle to get through. And that's where I believe the main problem comes from. That's why we develop an animosity towards English. That is why we tend to dislike people who are good at English, because to us, maybe it was something unattainable and they seem to have attained it. And there's a little bit of jealousy somewhere, but also you could call them sour grapes. But that's my point, that perhaps the way we teach English in Pakistan, or for that matter, to every non-native English speaker, that needs to be absolutely turned on its head.
So what do you suggest? How should we turn it on their head?
It should be through experience. It should be through learning, through reading. Any English prowess that I have, trust me on this, hand on heart, I did not develop it in the classroom. All due respect to my teachers. I develop it through reading. There's no shortcut to it. English is hard. Any language is hard to learn. It may be easy to get into, but it's very hard to master. It's very hard to get into the beauty of it and to be able to express yourself in such a way that people listen to you. And that comes only through reading, reading, and reading. Yes, we are taught reading in our schools and colleges, but reading what? The books that are imposed upon us. Charles Dickens, or that absolutely devastating, suicidal, depressing book I recall, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. So is Family Robinson. And again, those books are absolutely beautiful. I have nothing against them. But what disqualifies them is that they are made a compulsory part of what we have to study. And I believe that's what drives us away from English, from Urdu, from the classic, from literature, from poetry. That's what drives us away. So I believe that needs to change. There's no shortcut to it. If you want to get from zero to having a good prowess of English, you need several years of reading and reading and reading and understanding and comprehending. And that's what needs to happen as far as English education is concerned.
Now, and it's not just English, it's all subjects. But when you're talking about English, we're talking about improving communication across cultures. When I first began working with Rehan, it was a little bit of a joke with the people who were on my show with me. I live 25 minutes from the White House. And the joke was someone will be knocking on my door either during the show or after the show and asking, who am I talking to and why am I talking to people in Pakistan? And of course, by that time I was laughing at it because I was really getting into it and I found out you guys were really good people. Knowing that, how important is it to help the children of the world learn to accept people from different backgrounds and different cultures?
It is absolutely essential. See, we live in a world today, on the risk of sounding cliche, we live in a world today where borders don't matter. You and I are talking without passports, without approvals. And yes, we, as you said yourself, we may hear, any one of us may hear a knock on the door at any point in time, who you are talking to. But we know that's not going to happen, right? And that is a lifeblood. Tolerance and acceptance is a lifeblood if we really want to exist. It's no longer an aesthetic choice. It's no longer a part of kindness and good human spirit to be tolerant and accepting. It is absolutely essential for survival. Because if you don't accept other people for who they are, other nations, other races, uh, all people from all walks of life, how are you supposed to interact with them? How are you supposed to make your mark in the world? So I believe it's very important that children from a very young age, they are taught to appreciate and celebrate all cultures, all religions, all races, all countries, all backgrounds.
So, what role does English bring to the world? And I'll tell you, it was a joke, but there was reality because I was doing a time politically. people from Pakistan were not welcome in my country. So it was, it was a joke and we joked around about it a lot, but there was some reality to what was happening.
Yes. Well, actually, English is something that makes us understand each other. So that's absolutely essential. For example, if I started talking to you in my native language, you perhaps will catch a word or two, having interacted with so many Pakistanis over the years, but I don't think you'll be able to understand me. And that's a fact. It's not an opinion. Uh, there used to be ages where the world had different dominant languages. There used to be an age where Persian was the dominant language. There used to be an age where Hebrew was a dominant language, or even Roman or Latin. But these days, for at least a century or so, it is English. And unfortunately, there's this stigma of, and I would call it a stigma, being very blunt, uh, since some people have that perspective. It's associated with white people, Europeans, Americans, Caucasians. That's simply not the case. The whole world speaks English. So I believe it's absolutely essential to make us understand each other. And ironically, English is the one medium that can ensure that we preserve our respective languages and cultures as well. Because if we try to stick doggedly to them while ignoring English, there's no hope for survival.
So what do we need to do in the world to change education? Now, I do want to get into what we spoke about when it comes to changing education too, because I think you have some amazing ideas. But how can we help our children want to change, this whole idea of education and what it's about?
Well, one thing, the fear needs to be taken out of education. And the fear, I believe, and I know every school kid in the world will agree with me, exams, they need to be abolished. Not because I want children to have fun all the time. No, I have children myself. The point is, exams and the whole system of marking and competitiveness, it puts them under undue pressure. They forget how to learn, they only remember how to compete. I am a blessed person because my parents never stressed on me that I have to be at the top of the class. And you know what was the result of it? I was at the top of the class. So that's something that needs to be taken out. I believe it's pathetic and artificial to test people once a year or twice a year based on their accumulative memory of what they've learned. Instead, it should be a point scoring system. They should be scored and graded on each day of contribution in the class, every test, every interaction with the teachers. It's not hard to do, and some institutions already do that. So it all works up to a cumulative score in the end, and ultimately, that's what they will teach them, that they have to be on their best behavior throughout the year and not just during the exams. They will have to be attentive and diligent. And see, I'm not about making this easy for the kids. When I say about removing exams, I mean to make it even more difficult, because we need to make the world a little more difficult the way we had it. We need to work at things to get them. We need to actually, when we used computers in our classrooms, we actually learned programming. That was the only entertaining thing to do with computers those days. These days, imagine asking any post-millennial to actually learn programming. So that's what I mean. It will make it tougher, but it will also make it psychologically easier if they're graded throughout the year under a cumulative point system, and they're graded in terms of a lot of disciplines, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their performance in classes, not just tests, but routine classes, their contribution, how many questions they ask, how many questions they answer. There can be a lot of things, and the digital age makes that possible. So I believe that's the way education should be going, in my opinion.
So let's say you have an art student who also wants to be an accountant, but hates reading and writing. How would you suggest teaching this kid?
There's so many other ways. For example, there's YouTube. There is all sorts of online academies. I know. Uh, I consider reading to be one of the primary uh, mediums of knowledge. I may be old fashioned, but that's simply not true for the current young generation, right? Especially anyone uh, in the post millennial age, Generation Z, they're not reading that much, they're just watching. So I don't think it really matters whether they pick up words off a screen and interpret them in their minds, or if they listen to those words and listen to the pictures attached to them. There can be so many ways, but one thing should remain constant, and that's that they should be uh, evaluated and graded uh, according to the skills they show and the growth they show over the course of a year, and not just once every 3 months or 6 months.
So if you were to do that and you were a student, maybe even your child came to you and said, Daddy, I want to become an accountant. What do I need to do? But I hate to read and I hate to write. How do I do what you're doing? Because I love you, Daddy. I want to be like you.
Well, I don't know whether anyone in human history ever said that I actually want to be an accountant, but I will humor you for a second and I will go along with you. Uh,
Yeah,
so,
just play the game.
yeah. So, uh, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of resources that can teach you accounting without reading. But one thing is certain, you need to apply time and effort, whether with a tutor or with online courses or with a book. But there's no, they, at least not to my knowledge, they haven't invented those pills in the matrix that you swallowed and you instantly learned everything about a particular discipline. No, to my knowledge, those pills do not exist yet, although the kids today kind of expect them to, but they don't. So if you're averse to reading, if you are stranger to books, you have videos, you have online courses, or you have other humans, you can go to them and they can teach you. You can pay them to do it. But one thing is certain, that you will have to apply your time and effort. It doesn't have to be through reading or through books. It can be through other mediums as well.
So what medium? Give me your curriculum for teaching your son to become an accountant. Very simply.
Teaching him accounting.
Yeah, he wants
Okay,
to. He just said, Daddy, I want to be like you.
in accounting.
I
Yeah.
want to be an accountant, but I don't know how to do it. I need help.
What I'll start with is that I'll hand him some money, and then I'll ask him to keep track of where he spends that money over the next month or so, and then bring it back to me. In fact, I'm very glad that you asked that, because I've conducted this training, which you might have heard, accounting for non-accountants. It happens throughout the world, right? It's meant for people who do not belong to the accounting profession, but they need to understand accounting. So the books or even the paper does not even need to come in at the beginning, at least. Only it needs to come when it starts to get real complicated. For example, uh, in that course, I teach them that you got a, a, a kilogram of potatoes. You can either eat them or you can sell them to your neighbor for maybe a 10% profit. So it's up to you. If you eat them, it becomes an expense. If you sell them to your neighbor, they become an asset and you earn a profit on them. And then maybe if you expand it further, you get more potatoes from the market and you sell them to people around you. You can actually have sales and profits. Or if you decide to turn them into French fries, then you'll need to make an investment in additional equipment, and that will be fixed assets and that will be depreciated. But then you'll be earning even more profit because French fries are like 100 times more profitable than raw potatoes. So it's very easy to teach accounting. Just give someone some money. Each of us is an accountant, in fact, because we are in our minds, we're constantly thinking about our financial situations, about how much money we have, how much money we need, what are our expenses. So I believe that's the best way to teach my son. I'll just give him some money and I'll ask him to spend that money over the next few weeks and then document how he spent that money. That will be a good starting point, I believe.
And what do you think you'll find out?
I'll find out that, first of all, something that I just said, all of us have that instinct of survival. And that makes us all accountants, even if we don't know it. I challenge anyone, even if they can't use a calculator, even if they can't do simple arithmetics, everybody would know how much they earn and what are their expenses and whether they can survive in their income or not. So that's what I'll find out. And I'll also find out maybe perhaps some very new innovative ways to teach accounting. In the course of actually demonstrating the real life implications of accounting to him, I'll perhaps develop some new techniques that will not involve teaching at all. Instead, it will involve people doing things and then learning by doing things, sort of something like Toastmasters does.
Why you think Toastmasters would fit into this model that you're setting up?
For a very simple reason, 3 words: learning by doing. Stephen King said, and he's one of my favorite writers, he said that the only way to learn to write is to write. That's what he did. So if you want to learn anything, you need to actually get at it and you'll improve at it. And that's what Toastmasters teaches, that you need to start speaking, you need to get on the stage. And if it's a table topic, you don't even need to know the topic. When you speak, you'll receive feedback, only then you will improve at it. And I believe that's true for everything in life.
So do you believe that if we made every kid in the world a Toastmaster, would it help the child get through school?
Oh my God, that's underselling it. It won't just help them get through school. It would make them better communicators. It would make them more tolerant, and it would make them better human beings. I can bet everything I have on that statement, because when you start in a Toastmasters journey, you give feedback to people, you receive feedback from people, and you're doing all that without expectation of any return. Think about it. We are having this conversation without expecting any return. We just want to discuss and know and want our thoughts to reach people. That's what we do at Toastmasters. And doing something for no material return, just because you feel socially connected with people and you feel that it's your social responsibility to do that, that is the first step towards being a better human being. So that's what they will become, in addition to, of course, being excellent communicators.
And what will being excellent communicators do for the education system?
Well, they will perhaps not, and let me be the first one to say, they will perhaps not enable them to get top grades in the current education system. But what they will do is it will make them much smarter and much more intellectually inclined towards real life. And I believe that's something that matters a lot. How many entrepreneurs you have met, and I have met, who didn't have too much formal education, but they are geniuses at what they do. They have that instinctual sense about what they're doing. So I believe that is what it will make them. Since they will be better communicators, they will be better at listening and observing. And ultimately, that becomes a greater component of your success the further you are in life.
Now, what about the shy person who just decides, I need to break out of my shell? Would you recognize Toastmasters right away?
Well, that's the best part about it. Because believe it or not, I'm a shy person myself. I'm an introvert. Toastmasters tells me that it's okay to be a shy person. It's okay to be who you are. And even then, while being yourself, you can still interact with people and add value to people's lives. So that's the best thing about it. You don't necessarily have to break out of your shell. Only you need to discard the negative traits of who you are, the traits that stop you from expressing yourself. You don't need to be automatically bold and outgoing. Uh, some of our best inventors, thinkers, spiritual people, uh, artists, they have been introverts in real life. So there's nothing wrong with that. But what Toastmasters will do is that it will first of all teach me to celebrate myself for who I am. And secondly, it will remove my inhibitions that I have created myself against interacting with others.
Talking about that, so how will it help a student get over the fear of studying or get over the fear of saying a word in English incorrectly?
Well, if you in with reference to Toastmasters, and in fact with reference to any discipline, the first thing that you need is a comfortable environment. So even in a classroom, if you have a good enough teacher, if you make a mistake, they won't berate you for it. They won't insult you. In fact, they will maybe take you to a corner privately, and then they will tell you that this is not how it's supposed to be. And in Toastmasters too, that's exactly what happens. Yes, your grammatical mistakes are quoted for everyone to see or hear, but you are not named. And secondly, more importantly, you will hear other people speak English. And that's what really will teach you how to speak and express yourself well, in addition to getting feedback on your own speeches.
What about the people who are so scared if they say one word wrong, they're going to be thrown out? Whereas that's not the truth. It's more they'll be brought back and embraced more.
Well, yes, I recognize that fear. And many people who come to me to ask about Toastmasters, they express that fear themselves that, uh, what if we make a mistake? We are not good at English. We don't have good English grammar. But in Toastmasters, none of that happens. They are never called out. And they're, in fact, privately coached through their mentors about their English. So they don't need to fear at all. They just need to cross one barrier. And that barrier is they should be willing to come out there and make all these mistakes they want. That's one thing that they need to conquer themselves. And later, the rest will be taken care of for them.
I like that because education is guiding the person in the direction they want to go. To me, education isn't memorizing the facts. So, how can we change our audience to think in the way you are right now?
Well, I will just say one thing to the audience. Stop using brains. Your brain is a beautiful thing. And in fact, the human brain, there's nothing even remotely similar to the human brain that exists in nature. It is an absolutely uh, mind-boggling enigma. It's a supercomputer. It's a memory machine. It can take you places, get you into alternate universes. What are you using it for? You're using it as a hard drive. You're using it to store data. Come on, you have these for that. You have, if it's no achievement, if you can recall the phone numbers of all your friends. I'm sorry, that's no skill. That's my parents taught me that and perhaps your parents taught you that as well. That is, it's an absolute achievement to be able to remember long passages and phone numbers and to do calculations fast. But I'm sorry, you're just wasting your brain. Your brain is a computer. Use it like a computer. Use it to develop new ideas. Use it to think of new things and leave the memory to these devices. See, and I can guarantee you that the minute you pick up a calendar, a digital calendar, and start plotting your appointments in that, a huge portion of your mind will be free to think of other things. I tried it myself. Again, people take pride in their memories that, if I have something coming up, I can remember my 10 meetings by heart, where they will be, how long they will be. I'm sorry, that's nothing to be proud of. You're just wasting your brain. Instead, outsource it to the devices your brain has built for this purpose. And I'll just ask everyone to start thinking and stop memorizing.
I agree. Life is a flow. It's like a river. And if we don't flow down with the river and we're working against it, it becomes a drag. So it's time to allow us to flow down the river.
Yes.
Do you have any comments that you would like to say before we end?
Yes. Nothing is easy. So stop thinking it is. Learning English, mastering a craft, mastering public speaking, mastering a subject, all of it is hard. So prepare to put in the time and effort. Only then you will succeed. But before putting in the time and effort, you'll have to take the first step. And before doing that, open your mind to new possibilities that these devices enable for you. Stop using your minds as storage devices, start using your mind as computers, and stop thinking that you can do anything easily. You can master everything, but you need to put in the time and effort to do that. And some things only come with time. Don't think that if you read like 3 books in 3 days, you'll suddenly become a master of English grammar. You won't, because there's a natural pace and rhythm to these things. You need to do it over several months or years before you actually can tell by your ear whether a sentence is grammatically correct or not. So that's my message to everyone.
Thank you.
Most
So
welcome.
I want to thank you for speaking with me tonight. And well, for you, it's tonight. For me, it's still afternoon. And I want to ask people if they're interested in learning more about Toastmasters and education, that they can connect with you. Is that all right, Talha?
Of course.
And with that, I want to remind everyone that this show has been sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. And can we wave goodbye? Bye bye, everyone.